Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the November 8th, 2018 meeting of the Burlington Conservation Commission. Item 1 on the agenda is calling the meeting to order, so we're on item 2, citizens' time. Someone here that wants to make any comments for something not on the agenda? No. Okay. Approval of minutes. We have, the next is item 3, approval of minutes for October 25th, 2018. Is there any discussion needed?
No.
No. Motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Excuse me.
Second. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 0, 0. All right. Next is item 4. As we move right along, request for certificate of completion. It's a release of surety for an erosion sedimentation control permit. This is for 20 Second Ave, the Nordblum Development Company. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Steve Logan with Nordblum Company, and with me, Frank DiPietro from the BSC Group.
Okay. You folks want to say anything further, or is it self-explanatory?
Frank? I think it's pretty self-explanatory. We've been at the site a couple times with some of the staff.
Right.
I was at the site this afternoon. Again, it looked pretty stable, so we'll leave it up to the rest of the commission.
All right. John, do you have any comments on this? Are there any issues to be aware of?
There's no issues. So this is the second apartment complex on Second Avenue.
Right.
I did a walk through the week before last, or last week, with the applicant and the engineer, and I didn't see any issues. I mean, there's still a few landscaping things that are going to need to be switched out probably, but other than that, the site was stable and completed.
All right. Any further comments?
I thought it was a very thorough and professional report. Well done. I had one question, though, just for my own learning. It mentions that 2 bonds are involved, the original $25,000 bond, and then an additional bond of $50,000 to obtain the temporary certificate of occupancy. That's what it says. They're requesting a release of both, and
I could explain that.
I'm just curious what the second one is and how it gets implemented.
Yeah, the $25,000 bond was part of our permit, so we had to put that up. And then as we got close to requesting a certificate of occupancy, it was the wrong time of year, really, to get all the plantings done, and so there was a fair amount of landscaping that wasn't yet done, but we wanted to request our certificate of occupancy, or a temporary certificate of occupancy. So the contractor put up a $50,000 bond in order that we could have, you would have some surety that the landscaping would get done.
Okay.
So that's the second bond.
Was that done to the commission, or was that something
went through the
administrative?
planning board?
May have gone through the planning
I
board.
think that was the planning board,
That's
not
the
us.
plan, because I don't remember doing it. I thought maybe you could do it administratively or something.
No.
No, it's the planning
No,
board.
it's
Okay,
not.
thank you. I needed to understand that. That's all I have.
All right. So if there's nothing further, could I have a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for the erosion and sedimentation control permit for 20 Second Ave assigned to the Nordblum Development Company?
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor? 400. Next, so my understanding is we have $25,000 to release.
Correct.
That's in our
Yes.
department. Okay. Do you have any objection, John, to the whole amount being released?
No.
Anything from the commission?
Nope.
Could I have a motion to release the full amount of $25,000 for the release of surety for the erosion sedimentation control permit, 22nd Ave, Nordblum Development Company?
So moved.
Second. Second. All in favor? Same vote. You're all set.
Thanks very much.
Thank you kindly.
Nice to see you both. Take care.
If you get a chance when you're out there, so there was a slope between this one and the other building, you should just check it out. They did a really nice job on that slope.
Thank you. All right, now we're on item 5. Notice is given, the commission will hold a public meeting during which time a request for determination of applicability filed by GTH Homes LLC. The commission will be taking information related to the proposed demolition of a dwelling and the construction of a new dwelling within the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetative wetlands. The property is located at 18 Rocky Hill Street. The application is being heard pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, which is the Wetlands Protection Act, and Burlington Bylaw, Article 14. The application materials available in the Conservation's Office for public review. And who is here for that?
Greg Hickox of GTH Homes.
You're welcome to take,
And with me is Bob Richard of RH Richard Construction. Bob is the GC and builder and responsible for the job site.
all right, nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
So you get to talk first.
Okay.
So you've done the introduction, so you can say whatever summary you would like.
No, I just would like to say of course, we should have in front of you the RDA plan to tear down the existing home in 18 Rocky Hill and the shed that's on the property. And we'll do everything to, of course, to abide by the conservation rules and work tightly with John to make sure the conservation land abutting the property is protected.
Right.
And build another beautiful home in Burlington for some lucky citizen.
Goes without saying.
Yes.
Okay. All right, either Eileen or John, do you have any comments?
I think these gentlemen were a little bit surprised to discover that there was wetlands close to their property, but they immediately went about and flagged them, and they've been working with the staff on this project, and I think it looks like a nice proposal. They're proposing to infiltrate all their water on site already, so I don't really have any additional comments.
Okay, you have any concerns?
No.
All right. Okay, so let's see if there are any comments. Jennifer, questions or comments further?
No.
Okay, Ed, do you have anything further?
Nothing to add.
Okay, Bill?
I have a couple of questions. How tall is the house going to be?
The highest point probably be about 30, maybe a little over 30 feet.
Okay, so it's 2 stories, 2.5?
Two-story, yes.
Okay. And how much lawn are you planning for your project?
From in front of the straw wattles forward.
Right up to the straw wattles, as it?
Yes.
And will that be closed off where the shed is removed across there, or for the lawn, or?
It'll probably be straightened out. It would,
Yeah,
it would,
that's what I
you know,
figured.
it would
Okay.
look funny the other way.
You plan any other tree cutting?
Any more? No.
No, okay. I realize that, what did I have a question about? I realize that the trees that were out front are outside of our jurisdiction, but I feel obligated as a conservation commissioner to advocate for trees and to advocate for wildlife. I would have liked to have seen them remain.
Can I answer that question?
Please, yeah.
I tried, I'm a big tree guy.
Okay.
Come to my house, I have plants everywhere. I work with marquee tree, and the problem with the roots, those trees were beautiful maples.
Yeah.
My goal was just to prune them. And the roots were so big and all the way underneath the foundation. He said, look, you build a new house, you're gonna have a problem with those roots.
You'd be disturbing them.
Yeah, so I asked the experts, and he said, look, I hate to tell you, Greg, you gotta take them down. I didn't
Okay,
wanna take them down.
okay, I appreciate you considering
What I
it.
always do in all our sites with Bob's, I always put up a lot of trees. If you come into some of the sites, we just finished 6 Maryville, I put up big, beautiful blue Colorados in the back. And
Nice,
I always try to replant where stuff existed, you know?
okay. Now, you have to run new sewer in there too, right?
Yes.
So that's gonna go through the root area probably
That's
as
another,
well.
that was
Yeah.
another issue that came up,
Okay.
because we had to dig into the street.
And then my first reaction was, I would like to, if it was possible to keep them and let the new owners decide, hey, those are nice, or
I would have
whatever.
loved to
so,
keep them. They
Okay,
were beautiful trees.
Yeah,
It's
they were.
unfortunate.
okay, I appreciate your input. That is all I have.
All right, Eileen, do you feel that the area in back of the straw wattles could use any cleaning up at all?
I remember there was some debris in there that I noticed. They could certainly take that out by hand. I'm not sure we put that in the draft. I don't think so.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I thought you could do some hand cleaning of some areas that could, dead branches just lying around and stuff like that. I mean,
Sure.
So you'd agree to do some of that as
Of
well?
course, we
Yeah.
always do. Thank you. We'll clean that
Makes
up.
it a lot more appealing too.
Yeah, we just, when we were shocked it was wetlands, because, we're so used to looking at lots and seeing them now. And when John told us it was on, me and Bob were like, oh, no. So we kind of stopped and didn't touch anything, because we were gonna continue cleaning up that whole area.
Of course.
And we just said, let's not touch anything and wait till we come in front of the.
All right, okay, so that's the only question I have. I have nothing further then. Anyone in the audience for this one? 18 Rocky Hill Street? Nope. Given that's the case, we have a negative conditional determination. Are you familiar with what that is?
No.
Okay, what it is it means if we vote in favor of it, which I guess is likely in this circumstance, there's a few conditions that if you adhere to, we do not anticipate any major issues occurring from the construction. So we'll first review it, then vote on it, and then we'll get you on your way.
Thank you very much.
Sure. All right, Eileen?
Okay, the property is at 18 Rocky Hill Road. The applicant was proposing to demolish an existing house and construct a new single-family house, move the driveway to the right-hand side of the house, add utilities, including a new water main, but I think that should be sewer main. I meant sewer main, sorry about that. I'll just fix it. And removing an existing shed on concrete slab. Minor grading and no tree removals were proposed. The work is within the 100-foot buffer and approximately 75 feet from the BVW. The Commission isn't making a finding as to the exact boundaries of the wetlands. To the next page, a lot of the conditions are standard. They really just say that the decision is only for the work as described above. You're going to put in sediment barriers, erosion controls before additional work continues. No stockpiling within 50 feet of the wetlands, and don't track sediment onto the roadways, and if you do, then you have to clean them up. No filling or grading other than that shown in the accompanying plan. Rooftop runoff shall be infiltrated using the drip edge stone trenches as shown on the approved plan. And the new driveway shall be pitched so that runoff shall be directed to a stone infiltration trench or a trench drain system, not to the street. We had mentioned about cleaning up debris in the wetlands, but you've also agreed to just do a tidy in the buffer zone. No use of pesticides within 100 feet of wetlands. Members of the Conservation Commission or their agents can enter upon and inspect the premises, and violations are finable. And the Conservation Commission or staff will not sign off until a site inspection has been made by one of the administrators. And the site is stabilized. That means
All right.
grass.
These are what I would term as minimal conditions.
Yes.
And do you have any questions, though, on them? I mean,
No?
No.
okay, I mean, it's pretty standard stuff.
Standard stuff we've dealt with in the past.
Right. Okay, if there's nothing further, could I have a motion to issue a negative conditional determination for the project described at 18 Rocky Hill Road in Burlington, under Burlington Bylaw Article 14 in the State Wetlands Protection Act?
So move.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? 4-0-0. You're all set?
Thank you very much for your time.
All right, good luck with your
Thank you.
project. Okay. All right, we're on item 6. Notice is given that the commission will hold a public hearing, during which time will take information related to a notice of intent filed by Blake Development LLC for the demolition of a single-family dwelling and construction of a new single-family dwelling at 22 Town Line Road. The proposed work would be within a 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetative wetlands pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, which is the Wetlands Protection Act, and Burlington Bylaw, Article 14, and it is within the riverfront area pursuant to Burlington Bylaw, Article 14 as well. The commission will review all information relative to the application and may issue an order of conditions. The application materials available in the Conservation Department's office for public review. Well, good evening.
Good evening. How are we all tonight?
Fine, and yourself?
Just fine. A little bit cooler than it's been in
has been.
previous months, but it is my favorite time of the year.
So you're probably familiar with how this goes, so please introduce yourself, and the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate it. So good evening. Joe Blake, one of the principal owners of Blake Development. I operated with my wife and I. Wanted to just take an opportunity this evening. I did print out a plan here. I'd be happy to offer it up on the easel.
Go right ahead, and you can pull the portable mic, turn it on,
Okay.
tap it to make sure it's on. hold,
It is on.
it's on, hold it up fairly close. And you can pull it right out, you
An
can,
optimum viewing in the
no, you can pull the microphone out of the holder, and it should work. Just, there you go. You can, is it on?
It should be on.
Testing?
Yes,
You- Okay, great.
you're all set.
I think my children know how these work much better than I do. So, may have to stand here and display a bit, but what I'd love to do this evening is just walk you through a little bit, thank you so much. Little counterweight to it. What I'd love to do this evening is just walk through the proposed plan for what we're planning to do for the owners of 22 Town Line. The plan itself does show where the current structure resides on the property. Little unconventional with this one, we are proposing to build a new home behind their existing dwelling. The owners would love to reside there as we are building. The wife operates a daycare out of the home, so there is potential revenue loss to the family if they did have to move and relocate. One of the main reasons they're actually looking to build on their current properties, I've worked with them for 2 years to try to find a piece of property to build on in town. We all know what that looks like, so we decided that the current property where they reside today would be advantageous for them. The husband does work from home as well, so just for the sake of his employment. They do have 2 children and a pet as well, so we just thought it'd be more comfortable for them to remain where they are today. They love the neighborhood, they love the peace and serenity of the conservation lands bordering them as well, so it should be lovely for them. What we would love to do, though, in proposing the new dwelling where it resides on the lot today, would love to help improve a lot of the drainage on the property today. So the land does pitch into the house. There is a split on there today. The water table over there is about 1 foot down from where the finished grade is. And with all the rain we've had lately, I'm sure that has something to do with it, but still 1 foot from the finished grade is shocking that they don't have any water in their house today as it is. So what we'd love to do is help improve that with the grading that we're proposing on the house itself. The infiltration around the home, I plan on doing a 2 foot by 2 foot stone trench. We did elect to do Caltech units initially. We then performed soil testing with Norse Environmental, realized where the water table is, and it just would not be responsible, it wouldn't make financial sense, and it just plain wouldn't work for us to put Caltech units on that property as it is today. So we are proposing a 2 foot by 2 foot, 3/4 inch wash stone trench around the entire property for the new dwelling. The driveway itself will be about 90 feet from the front of the garage up to the curb. We are proposing a 2 foot by 2 foot, 3/4 inch stone trench along the entire driveway so that we can pitch water away from the road and also away from the wetlands bordering to the side of the property. We also are proposing to help improve the grading on the front of the lawn, where we will have 90 feet of frontage there. I would like to have roughly 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch of pitch per foot with the new grading that I propose from the street, where the curb is, up to the front of the property itself. And in doing so, the impervious areas on the new dwelling are actually smaller than what resides today. Between the split house they have there today, a very large pool with patio decking area, and a very large deck off the back of the house, the new home, although much larger, will actually lend itself much better to the lot there. We are proposing also, with the current fence that's around the property, I would love to take the fence and move it roughly 5 feet from where it is today. So today, there is a fence bordering the property. It's roughly 28 feet off the existing dwelling. That still gives us a 10-foot buffer to the property line for the homeowner. Now, realizing that the wetlands are bordering on this side, we want to be mindful of that. I would like to move the fence about 5 feet, that would give the homeowners about 10 feet from the new dwelling to where the new fence would reside along this side of the property right here for them. The existing fence in the back here, I see no reason to have to relocate that. They would like a newer fence. They've had the fence up there about 10, 12 years or so now. So they would like to have a newer fence, but we'd still have about a 58-foot buffer from the back of the new home to where the fence would reside in the back there as well. And I think the only other mention I wanted to make there is, along the side here, the homeowner has requested some of the trees that reside, they are on their property today, but some of the trees that do reside there, they just need some pruning done to them. Some of the trees may have to be removed due to the proximity of where they would be in relation to the new dwelling going in there, but we will, for the most part, try to look to work with a company like Collins Tree Service or Marquee Tree Service, perform some pruning along the trees there. There is a very large pine in the back that the homeowner would like to remove. The angle of the sun does come across the back of the property here, so I'd like to try to open that up a little bit. So the pine, we would like to remove that.
Where is the pine?
So the pine tree is currently residing in the very back corner of the property. It's inside the fence perimeter. I think the commission may have performed a site visit yesterday, I believe. So the pine tree is in the back right corner. There's an existing shed there right now. We would be removing the shed. There are no plans to put a new shed in the corner. They just assume remove it. So there's a tremendous amount of detail on this plan. I purposely wanted to wait before we incorporate all this detail because it would be quite difficult to read. I did print it out. I'd be happy to share those printouts with the commission for your review, but I'd be happy to take any questions or feedback or any observations that you have.
Okay, so what we'll do is we will go through with questions. If you have to look at something, you can bring back that answer or send it in a
you.
written response. You don't have to have the answer to every question now,
Sure.
obviously.
No, I appreciate that.
For
Thanks.
obvious reasons. And then we'll see where it takes us from there.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, if you
I-
want, you're welcome to sit down, or,
I'm afraid if I sit down, this will fall down. Thank you. I'm
Those
happy-
copies of that,
Yes, sir. That's right. I'd be happy to share
can we
them.
see those now? Because then
Most definitely.
our plans don't show the trees and the fence and all
Thank
that
you.
stuff. Then we can work from our plans.
We do have a DEP filing number for it as well. It was just issued this morning as well. And that should be searchable on the site tomorrow morning.
Terry would be proud of this one.
thank you. And the difference between this one and the previous one we got with the application is the fence line has been moved and the trees are there. are shown.
So some of the key differences I'd like to highlight for the commission are, we did incorporate the location of a test pit where we performed the soil testing. The test pit location is to the right of where the proposed home is there. And that elevation that we performed the test pit dig at was at 152-foot elevation. That's where we found the water table to be 1 foot down from where that finished grade is there today. We also made some changes with regards to the inclusion of straw wattles, so 12-inch straw wattles, which will cover the entire perimeter of the property. I'd like to incorporate siltation fencing as well, along where the wetland border is on the side of the property there as well. And we also incorporate some additional elevation measurements, ground measurements, sill height measurements, and also incorporate some changes to the water infiltration. Due to the water table that we discovered on site there, we decided to forego the use of Caltech chambers and instead elect to use 3/4 inch stone.
Okay. All right, let's start with Jennifer. Any initial questions?
Yeah, so in the report that you gave us here on page 5, it says that you're requesting a waiver to build within the no-build zone,
Yes.
so we'd have to grant that
All right.
waiver if we agreed to it, I guess. Is there any other way the plan could be written, so, or like, to be drawn to not go into that area?
It's a great question, Jennifer, because what's somewhat ironic, there's a sunroom that we have on the left side of the property there. It was not initially in the plans that we were discussing with the homeowner. They would love to include a sunroom, and we found that with the layout and the grading on the property, if I were to take if you're looking at the plans, it's the 14 by 12 foot sunroom that is effectively behind where the test pit location is that we dug. If I were to take that room and move it to the back of the property, the grading that we have back there now wouldn't really permit for us to both do that. We would then be lessening the usable space in the backyard for the customer. They'd have to forego some of the finished patio area that we're seeking approval on for the back there as well. And it just wouldn't be too conducive to how they'd like to and plan on using the home there. So that was really more personal preference from the homeowner. They'd love to seek approval for that. The land to the left there as well, so from the southern direction, is all conservation land today as well. So although it's not their property, no one else is using it, so they do enjoy having that open space over there as well.
All right, I'd like to go to our staff also and see if they have. I neglected to ask you for comments first, which is my usual practice. You have my apologies.
No problem. So this plan we just got tonight, this is not a scaled plan, correct?
No, because this one was 1 to 40. I think it's just.
So this is just blown up?
So this, I did ask that when we enlarged this, the initial plan was a 1-inch measurement. This would be a 1/2-inch measurement for 40 feet. We effectively just doubled it. So this was printed off in 11 by 17. So the scale here, which is representing a 1-inch scale, representing 40 feet. In this case, 1 inch would be representing 80 feet. So 1/2 inch would represent 40 feet for this.
So there's a few things I'm kind of having trouble following. The contours on the plan are the existing contours.
Yes, sir, that's right.
So but you've talked about grading, and I don't see the proposed contours on the plan.
So with the proposed contours, what I'd love to be able to do, the reason I didn't want to include it on the plan as it is right now, I don't want to put too much data on here, and then we won't be able to discern what any of that data is representing. Where we do have roughly 90 feet from the curb to where the front of the garage begins, roughly about 110 feet to where the front entrance will be to the home itself, we have roughly 110 feet of grading and additional material that I'd like to bring in. The problem that the homeowner's running into now is the water, everything is pitching down into the house, so I'd love to bring in additional fill and effectively take what is now a 150-foot elevation to the bottom of the garage floor. I'd like to increase that about 3 feet to be their new basement elevation, and then effectively top of sill measurement would be about 160 feet. So their current top of sill measurements are just shy of 154 feet, so I'd love to propose bringing that up about 6 feet or so, and then ultimately leaving us with a 2-foot foundation exposure for the front of the home.
Okay, so the proposed grading really needs to be shown on the plan.
Okay. Be happy to.
So, yeah, so we can figure it out. Additionally, I talked to the wetland scientist and let him know that, so there's the stream over here is on our regulatory streams map, so it does have a riverfront area, and that should be also shown on the plan. That can be plotted out by the surveyor. I would assume it's probably, the entire lot's in the riverfront area, but it should just be shown.
Okay, sure.
So I'm also not clear, so I see the proposed straw wattles, but then beyond that it says trees to be removed. So typically the wattles would be the limit of work beyond which no work is being done, and you're showing work beyond the limit of work, which isn't the way.
So you're absolutely right. The existing fencing that they have today, I was planning on using that as the border for work, but also reinforcing that with the wattles just to limit any erosion from the property. We would like to request approval to be able to remove some of those trees over there. I know we won't have to remove all of them, though. Really, the more concern is any pruning that we can do for any trees that would be close to the new structure. We'd love to be able to do that. Any trees that would be interfering with the new structure, we would like to be able to remove those. So my intent was to seek the approval of the commission to be able to remediate that issue if necessary. But in finding that, though, too, the grading of the land beyond it there, it is wet. Granted, it's been raining quite a bit, but I really would not want to move the fence, the new fence back any further than about an additional 5 feet from where the buffer is today. So the existing fence is about 28 feet off the existing structure. If I were to leave it where it is, the homeowner would have roughly 5 feet between their new home and the existing fence. So I'd love to be able to move that just about 5 feet, give them about, 10 feet along the side of the property there. And if I were to do that, would be bumping into a few of those trees in the back there.
Okay, so it appears the trees are they're in they're roughly 10 feet from the wetlands.
You're absolutely right.
From flag 2A anyway,
Yep.
which is within the 20-foot no disturb.
Could we clarify something here? The heavy line going around this project, what is that?
So the heavy line is the proposed location for the straw wattles and
Straw
or
wattles.
siltation barrier. Yes, sir.
So it's the limit of work,
That is the limit of work. That's right.
okay? And where do we see in this drawing are you moving I just want to interject here so we're clear what we're looking at. Where is the line for your fence? You have an existing fence, and where are you moving it to?
Yes, sir.
I can't discern that.
So the existing fence is located within, I'd be happy to show you here. So the existing fence shares the same border with the straw wattles along this side of the property,
Okay, so the heavy line represents the existing fence.
and straw wattles along this side of the property, yes, sir. Now, that fence does continue down with a straight line and at
Okay.
a 90-degree angle, continues along the back of the property here. So this is the existing fence location. What we would like to propose, and the only way that we'd really be able to do it is removing the necessary trees along the side of the property, is taking the existing fence and moving it 5 feet closer to what is effectively already a no disturb area.
So you would like to move the fence to the lot line?
Yes, sir, 5 feet closer to the lot line,
5
which,
feet closer, okay.
which
That
would
explain-
enable-
That explains what you're doing.
Yep.
And is this fence shown on is the new fence location shown on this drawing?
So the new fence location is not shown on the drawing. What I would love to do is take the changes that we're proposing today, get the feedback from the commission on that, incorporate that into a different scale on this drawing, where we can have maybe 2 different plans, one showing just proposed, one showing just existing. That way it'll be a little bit easier. Right now, everything is overlaid, and it's a very detailed, it has to be a very detailed set of plans. So I'd love to be able to review just the proposed version of where everything will reside, and then have an existing one, and we can compare and contrast as appropriate there too.
All right. All right, okay, thank you for that clarification.
What are the trees? Do you know what the tree line is? I don't remember what they were. Does anybody?
Evergreens.
They were Everett pines. Most of them were pines, is that
Yes, sir.
correct?
Most of them are pines. There were a few hemlock trees towards the road side there, and then in the back, and particularly on the back border, mostly pine
Okay.
trees.
All right. John or Eileen, any further comments at this point?
I don't think so.
All right, so let's see where we go. Jennifer, were you done for now?
Well, no, so I just want to clarify
Yes.
that you're within the no disturb zone, and you want to cut down a bunch of trees, rip up a fence, and then put a new fence even further into the no disturb zone.
That
Oh, okay.
that is correct. That would be the
Okay.
ideal.
Okay.
And you don't feel there's any other way to, like, reconfigure the plan to do that?
At the request of the homeowner, that's what they'd like to seek approval on.
Okay, Ed,
The only thing I can probably add is, looking at it from the very left side, there was a number of trees along that fence line also, besides just that one that's in the corner. It'd be nice to kind of see those defined. I think also, this is first time I've actually seen a trail this nice. You guys really impressed me, taking me for a little walk up that trail. But you've got that starting right back there, and there's an awful lot of heavy debris, cut trees, stuff like that.
Right.
Big ground stuff. That kind of takes away from that. I know it's not right on this property line, but to get that a little bit more dressed up and to understand better what the trees are that are there,
Sure.
kind of leads to what this property is all about too, where it resides. I had questions on the fence too, but that's been pretty much defined. That's all I've got.
Okay. All right, Bill.
So this is a regulated stream that goes nearby, and with a 1 foot to the water table, is this a flood zone area at all?
It's not a FEMA flood zone, no.
I'm surprised. I mean, it must, does it flood?
I have not observed any flooding over there. The homeowner's not made me aware of any flooding. The color of the grass, you can see it, it's wet. The grading that's over there right now, it pitches into the house, the existing driveway on the property right now as well. You can see the damage that the water table being so close has done and eroded the soil and caused damage to the driveway over the years as well. Being a split, they do, of course, use the first floor of the home. They have not made me aware of any water damage, water issues. I've not observed any to the property. It's a miracle that they don't have any right now. Because I was shocked. We dug the test pit location, and Norse Environmental was there, of course, to observe it as well. We couldn't believe when we pulled that up. Now, my intent is with the removal of the pool area in the back there too, we can improve the grading. I mean, just by design, we'll be able to improve the grading back there. There is also a very large patio area off the existing house underneath the deck there too. So there's a tremendous amount of area we can reintroduce soil, grade things properly, have the water be infiltrated appropriately. And I was surprised when we were reading through all the calculations that I believe we have a reduction of about 37% to the impervious area there with the new dwelling once we remove the existing house.
I'd be concerned with significant grading going on, that you're affecting how that water is flowing and, how it's feeding, the hydrology of these bordering vegetated wetland. I think that's something that would concern me if you're going to be changing a lot of the grading here and shuttling the water somewhere else.
I agree with you completely. Part of the reason that we'd like to improve some of the grading there today too is because the water table is so close to the finished grade today. My concern is whatever is present on that property right now is making its way right into the groundwater without really any means for it to go. Water's going to go where it's going to go naturally, and this home has been here for quite some time. The ground itself has settled quite a bit as well over the years, but my intent would be to do a better job at controlling what water runoff we have from the newly proposed dwelling by removing a lot of the impervious area to it there too, and grading and pitching the property the way that it should be with a nice slope, and we can get the appropriate pitch away from the home itself, rather than pitching into the house, will also help to keep that water from infiltrating into the water table and then ultimately going into the conservation areas around it there too, particularly the wetland to the north.
Well, that is a concern of mine. They're very nice wetlands, some beautiful flowering witch hazel in there right now, and it's like Ed said, it's an excellent walk going through that area. And I go through there regularly. I'm a fan of it. I am not a fan of waiving these no-build zones and disturbing in the no-disturb zone. I think there's enough land here to design a house that fits within the regulations. In my opinion, you're asking us to pretend the regulations don't exist, and when they clearly do. And the fact that, you might have less of a backyard, you've got the whole conservation area abutting your property. I wouldn't be too concerned with a small usable backyard. You're gonna have a significant green space in the front of the property. I think it's bending the rules to your advantage. It's.
Could we actually take this subject a little bit further? Would you mind if?
No, go right ahead.
Then you chime in here?
Yep.
Would you, if you don't mind? We have a couple of things from a regulatory point of view going on here. If we have riverfront as asserted by the bylaw, then that means that the changes that you're doing are within the inner riparian zone. And one of the things that requires is an alternative analysis. John, so I want to, back me up if I go astray here, or correct me. It requires an alternative analysis. And one of the things is we would require us to evaluate how to avoid any proposed impacts within that first 100 feet. And with you proposing to move the fence, cut the trees so you can move the fence, so you don't look out the window of this large house and see nothing but fence, which I completely understand the logic behind your the owner's preference not to do that. Then the alternative analysis has to meet the regulations and show that there is no alternative. Okay, and so.
You make an excellent point with regards to the fence. I did propose to the homeowner, because that area will largely just be the garage, there's not much of a need, particularly with the walkout basement that they'll have, there's not much of a need for us to have a fence that would allow them access to the entire perimeter along the side there of about the 4 feet or so. I'd be happy to go back to the homeowner and talk to them about eliminating what is currently their fence there today, removing that fence, and having the new fence begin in its current place in the back of the property.
I don't even want to comment on doing this off the cuff.
Sure.
What I'm suggesting to the commission is that you go back and talk to our staff, talk to John and Eileen about the wording of what an alternative analysis has to consider.
Sure, okay.
Okay, a practical alternative, and come up with some justification for why it has to be this way. I'm not sure that's going to be easy to do, to be honest. I'm not trying to give you a hard time. But
No,
I think you're going to have a hard
commentary.
time. But you should look at the wording of what's required and come up with something in writing, for the next meeting. The next thing is, you're asking for a waiver of the no disturb zone and of the no build zone. I thought it was only no build zone. And the requirements are very clear in the bylaw and the regulations, and we can review them at the next meeting. I wasn't sure we were going to need this, but it says something to the effect that first you must avoid, see if you can avoid it, and then if not, you would minimize the impact that you're having, demonstrate, and if you can't minimize the impact, then it gives you a couple of conditions. One major consideration is that there is something of valuable to the enhancement of the resource as an incentive to grant the waiver. That's not the exact language, but essentially that's the way I interpret it. And so we have a resource area and we have a conservation area, and I'm not sure I clearly see what it is you're proposing. Now, having said all that, it also, in my own mind, and Bill, I don't know if you agree or not, is that you're talking about trimming trees, which to me, I think it's not clear whether it might be a wholesale cutting in order to get the fence back where you need it. A couple of thoughts occur to me. One is, John is at some point want to take a look at which trees are being proposed to be cut if it's only partial. We'd also want to take a look at how essential those trees are to the wetland being so close. What role do they play in your opinion? Okay, would you recommend they not be cut because of the value to the resource area?
Where's the bank? Is that close to the wetland line? Is there some places, in some streams, we've seen the bank edge is virtually the limit of the wetland.
I would say it's probably very close to those
The
wetland
bank is right
flags.
there, those trees could be important participant in maintaining the bank. You know, we need to see where that is on the drawing if we could.
So, in order to grant the waiver, there is a bit of a process to go through, a sequential process, and the first order of business is to avoid the impact and the 20-foot no disturb zone if it's possible, minimize the disturbance, and then after that, allow the minimum disturbance based on what impact you're having and you know, is there some enhancement to the function of the value of the resource that you're doing that could be offered. And then it has to relate to, also to the alternative analysis for the size and shape of the house that you have.
Yes.
So that's a little bit of a process you're gonna have to respond in writing to and get back to us on, honestly.
Sure. Be happy to. Thank you.
The regulations are kind of clear in terms of what we have. Do you have any comment, John, on what I'm trying to articulate?
So one additional thing, though, so the imperviousness, so you're claiming that there's a reduction of 9% of imperviousness. Could we get a breakdown by the engineer of what specifically those are? Like, what's the existing, how much is the pool, how much is the patio, how much is the roof and the driveway, and then on the proposed?
Absolutely.
Part of the pool patio is off the parcel. I mean, there's definitely a lot of encroachment of this parcel onto the adjacent parcel, which they don't own. And then from the drawing, it looks like the pool patio is partly not on the lot, so they shouldn't get credit for reduction of the portion of the pool patio.
This is on their
That isn't
property.
even on their
Yep, it's a
property.
great point. Okay.
John, you said that is not conservation land down on the road.
Yes, yeah. When we went out there and we realized that where the property line was and the fact that this portion, they're basically using the adjacent lot, we were afraid that it was conservation land and it would have been a big deal, but it's actually owned by NSTAR or Boston Edison, as the deed actually says. But the swing set and all that is not on their land, that's on NSTAR's land.
Right.
Right, which is another benefit, basically, of living like that, and you have the freedom of using some of that, and the NSTAR's not gonna complain about it as long as you're not planting tall trees that are gonna bother their power lines or
I think
whatever.
NSTAR thinks it is because they asked me permission to cut down a pine tree. There's a big red X on one of those pine trees, and they thought it was conservation land. And I gave them permission, thinking it was conservation land. Now I realize it's your land.
Well, let's not go out of our way to make them aware of
Keep
anything
asking for
different.
permission. But it supports also my feeling that, you know, if you do encroach more on what would be open space, you know, on the property behind the house, you've got more to compensate all around it, that's to your benefit, you know, that many lots don't have that asset.
Right.
All right, Bill, did that sort of put a little bit more
Yes, that helps.
detail on what you were alluding to?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, so there's no one the record should show no one's in the audience for this. So I have a list of, and one additional thing, is the trench drain for the driveway shown on here somewhere?
So we did not include it along the left side of the newly proposed driveway.
Okay.
There was a note made
And is,
beneath there.
and is there, I see a slope of 4%, but there's no notation to slope it to on the drawing.
Inside towards the trench there.
Towards the trench.
Yes, sir. I'd
So-
be happy to include that.
You should include that so the contractor, you're the contractor?
Yes, sir.
Oh, so you, okay, we should go include it so you know.
Yes,
How's
sir.
that?
Right. Absolutely, be happy to.
Okay.
So to your point about the alternatives analysis, I'd recommend that you use your wetland scientist to do that.
Yes.
In addition to the alternatives analysis, there's also a requirement in the riverfront area to improve the existing situation. So what you're proposing is actually removing trees. So to improve the riverfront area, you'd have to do some plantings or something to actually improve the riverfront area.
Yes, sir.
So you should talk to Norris about that as well.
All right, let's go through the list. I've made a list and see if it jives with the notes that you have, sir. Okay?
Be happy to, yes.
All
Thank
right.
you, sir.
So the first is proposed contours. You're going to have a plan with the future plans on it.
Yes.
So proposed contours. I think we said something about showing the riverfront line on there as well?
Yes,
The
incorporating that.
100-foot riverfront line. All right, and you're showing work beyond the limit of work, so I think, based on what version of the plan that you come back with, okay, normally we need a limit of work that actually, on the future plan that says limit of work, and nothing in back of that is being done.
Be happy to include.
Okay.
Thank you.
And we would need to, if you're still proposing to cut trees after all this analysis, we would need to mark the trees, so we know which ones are being cut as opposed to which ones being trimmed, with some
Okay.
tape or something.
We would be happy to work with the commission to understand what the idea would be there, sure.
Okay, and someone came up with the concern about grading affecting I guess what the proposed grading is because of water flow.
The hydrology to the wetland.
Okay. All right. Right. Okay, and next is the alternative analysis, the justification for a waiver with what the regulations say. John, did you ask for the breakdown of impervious surface,
Right, proposed and existing.
proposed and existing? And show the trench drain and the slope to it for the driveway. And the riverfront regulations require an improvement to the existing situation with some proposed plantings. That's what I have. Anyone have anything else?
This distance here, question?
What's
Pool
that?
is going on the line.
I don't understand the
John
question.
mentioned something about that.
That the pool is what?
It's right on the line.
It's over the line.
So John was concerned about getting approval over here. I think that's
No, I'm just saying when he gives us the proposed, the existing impervious, it shouldn't include the portion that's off their parcel. They have to remove that, but that's not existing impervious on their own parcel.
Right. Okay, so you don't get extras, in other words, for something off the property. Okay,
There's a tree line too that's in here. Should be
something about the
defined.
tree line,
Right along the fence, that's all trees.
all right, and,
Just a question of adding them, like these are added to the plan right now. Where are they? Are
oh,
they
okay, and there was a
being-
question of some trees in the back. Where are they on the plan? So,
Be happy to include them
okay,
as well.
okay, trees in back. All right. Are there any further comments from anyone? All right. Now, we're getting into the holidays, so the next meeting is December 13th, but you folks also have some work to do too.
Yes, sir.
So, maybe that's not so bad. All right. I'd suggest before you do that submittal that you might want to talk to the office and get the language for both the alternative analysis and for the justification for granting waivers, just so you can actually address it directly.
Right.
Okay? It would be helpful.
Be happy to. Thank you.
Okay. It's better than you submitting something and we say, well, that's not exactly what is needed, and then you go back, do it once, and that's it.
I'd be happy to, and I appreciate the feedback of everyone on the board and with the commission there too. It's essential to what we're doing, and the homeowners love where they live today. They enjoy using the trail behind them. I had no idea there was one there. I'll usually go to the, it's down, I usually go down Peach Orchard, shoot down Wellesley, and go to the reservoir over there. So I love frequenting over there. But I had no idea that they had one over there as well on the Mill Reservation there too. So It is. But it's very different. The one at the reservoir gets a little hairy on the opposite side there with the trees and everything there
It's a
too.
little
so-
narrow on that side.
Yep.
Correct. Okay, so unless there's something further, we'll put you on the agenda for December 13th.
That works for me, yes. Thank you all very much.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Very good. All right, thank you very much. We look
My pleasure.
forward to
Thank
seeing
you.
you. We'll see you in a few weeks.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it. Thanks,
All
everybody.
right, take care. Okay, so next, we have on the agenda, let's see, was number 7, a continued public hearing. That was for 121 Lexington Street. My understanding is that this application has been withdrawn. Okay. And next is number 8, planning board comments. John, do we have any issues with the planning board? No. Okay. 9 is subcommittee and staff reports and updates. Who would like to say something?
I'll say something.
I knew you would.
We had a very successful first Natural Burlington photo contest and show on Tuesday evening. There was over 100 people that came, which was great. And people are already asking about when it's going to be next year. So excited about that. So,
My daughter tends to use one adjective a lot, so I'll use it here.
okay.
Amazing.
Amazing, yeah.
Amazing.
It was very fun, and everything that was submitted was great, so we're gonna work on getting all the photos up on a public website so people can have a look, but, yeah, good
was-
stuff.
The quality of those photos, I think frankly, anybody that saw them, they were blown away by the quality of what was there.
Yeah,
I was really amazed as how good they were.
yeah,
And the artwork that the kids submitted was just precious. I mean, it was
Yeah.
preschool stuff to high school stuff, and every imaginative piece you could think of there. It was beautiful.
yeah. It
And
was
there were
very-
submittal of posters for various conservation recycle themes,
Yep.
all right? And I really liked the one that had the trash actually mounted right on the
Oh, no,
poster.
yeah,
I mean,
no excuses.
you couldn't mistake the point of that poster. And it talked about keeping the trails clean and so forth, and not throwing the various types of trash and so forth. The value in keeping our resources clean. John, any comments on it?
I think if you get tired of the medical field, you'd be a great event organizer.
Oh, thank
That'd
you.
be- I mean, seriously, it was fantastic. You got Rebecca's to donate the food, that was great. Somebody mentioned to me that they had doubts about the town, what the town spent to do Grandview, but after that event, they realized that there's nothing like that place in town, and what a great venue it is for something like that. It really
It's
was.
funny you
It was-
say
It
that.
was just beautiful.
My wife and I were actually talking about that, how it's a unique venue.
It really
To do
is.
that kind of a thing, where
Yeah.
they have all the different rooms that you can circulate through and see things that are on exhibit, and it was just really nice,
Yeah,
really nice.
it was, and the music was great.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
It was.
Thanks very much for all your hard work putting that together.
Well, thank you guys. I couldn't have done it
Fantastic.
without you guys.
Fantastic job.
Especially Bill and his wife who came to help set up, because I can plan
you, Bill.
things, but setting them up is another story. So Bill and his wife, and then my mother and father came and helped set everything up while I bossed them around. But it worked out okay.
It was so well done.
It was really fun. So, yeah, I was very pleased. So,
Okay, so we look forward to next year's event.
next year, yep.
All right. Okay, anything else?
So under other business, we received an environmental notification form, and we have it in the office, and we also have it electronically, which I guess we could distribute, or is it too big?
Well, I sent it already to someone.
Oh, you sent, did you
No,
send?
not here, I sent it,
Okay.
sorry.
So it's the environmental notification form with MIPA for the water supply project. So it's for the town's filing with the MWRA. So it's a fairly comprehensive document.
Would you like to see it? Would you like us to
Sure.
distribute it?
Now, I assume that the purpose is they have a comment period?
Right. And I think it requires an EIR, so this is just, I don't think this is the whole MEPA process. This is just the environmental notification form to get comments to figure out what has to go into the full environmental impact report.
I see, okay. All right, so if there are comments, could we feed the comments to the office? Is that how it would work?
Sure.
If we do?
And you want to mention the conservation restriction we signed?
Sure. So we'll circulate, we already circulated the conservation restriction for 6 Stony Brook Road, which was the project which you issued a notice of intent for, which required some floodplain filling in front and floodplain compensation in back. Part of that order of conditions required them to protect the rear of the lot in perpetuity through a conservation restriction. The applicant and their attorney have worked with the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, have gotten the CR approved at the state level. So now it's for you to sign, for the selectmen to sign, and then it goes back to EA for the Secretary of Environmental Affairs to sign, and then it gets recorded. So we're close to the end of that process.
Part of the area of the restriction was area that floods on a regular basis?
Right, so it will flood more now because they've actually lowered a portion of it to create new floodplain.
Right, right. So it's a good thing to have a restriction on it because
is.
we have significant flooding problems in town and we don't need to see those areas eventually filled in or certainly changed. They need to be protected.
Right, we don't want the homeowners or future homeowners to just, fill in the back,
Right.
to expand their lawn, so this will help protect it. So it's not, unlike most of our conservation restrictions, there's no public access. This isn't adjacent to conservation land, there's no trails, there's no way to get to this land except for the people who live there. They can certainly, the people in the house can walk back there, but the public has no access to it.
Right, right. It's mostly for protection of areas that flood.
Correct.
So the water has a place to go. On another subject, do you remember the large conservation restriction up by the Network Drive there?
Yes.
Are there trails on that? Do you know?
There are no trails. There had been a trail when they were doing remediation, but that's all grown in, so there are no trails.
There are no trails. As I was going by it, I was looking for trail access, and I couldn't remember whether there was a trail or not.
No. So there's some dry land behind the nursing home and the daycare center, but as you wouldn't be able to walk without getting in deep into wetlands very far. The dry portion of that conservation restriction is fairly small.
That's on that side. Isn't there also on the Route 3 side, too? Isn't there some behind Sun Microsystems, where they were?
Okay, so there were 3 conservation restrictions. By far, the largest conservation restriction was the big one there between Middlesex Turnpike and Middlesex Turnpike Extension. There were some smaller ones.
In back, that bordered around Route 3.
Right,
I thought there were some trails in there.
I'm not sure.
Whenever you have a moment, if you have a chance, would you take a look maybe?
Okay.
And let me know? It was considered one of the pristine areas that we permitted for that project many years ago.
Yeah.
And one of the areas that got a lot of attention was the area that got that restriction behind along Route 3. And it was considered quite beautiful at the time. And I'm just wondering if there are trails that were there.
I don't think there are. I was up there last summer, and they actually, they've planted the area heavily with wildflowers. They have beehives in there.
Right.
But I don't think there are actually trails.
If sometime you want to take a
Sure.
walk, we'll
Sure.
take a walk,
Okay.
see if we spot anything.
Is that the property that leads up to Partridge in Lexington? Partridge Road?
No, I don't think so.
No.
It's a-
Around the
it's-
Bedford side, going towards.
It's around, outside the perimeter of the Nordblum campus. It used to be called Sun Microsystems.
But it's that side of Route 3,
Yeah, it's on the east side of Route
so
3.
you haven't gotten on the other side?
No.
No.
Okay, that's where I am, all right.
That's the
'Cause I know
landlocked-
there's trails on that side all
Yeah,
the way up.
yeah,
to
that's the
Burlington.
landlocked forest.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so if you get any information on it, if not, maybe we'll go for an exploratory walk.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, any other business?
We're plugging along on the open space and recreation plan. We're continuing to have meetings.
One next week.
Yeah, and we'll have there will be one more outreach event, which we haven't really totally figured out yet. But
From that workshop that you held, is that input being considered into the
right,
plan?
along with the surveys that were done as well.
Right, right. Okay, if there's nothing further, a motion to adjourn. Second.
Second.
All in favor? No objection.